Hello everyone, I'm Chris Brigandy of Brigandy Coins and Collectibles, and welcome to another edition of Brigandy TV. Today I have a really awesome Joe Jackson American Caramel card. It's from 1909. First, a little history about Joe Jackson himself. Of course, everybody remembers him as from the Black Sox scandal. I'll get to that in a second. But starting in 1909, when the card was from, Joe Jackson was a rookie. He actually didn't do too well for his first few years. It wasn't until 1911, his first full season, considered his rookie year, 1911, he hit 408. Imagine a rookie hitting 408, an incredible player. And he continued this through the teens. Even Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth at the time, they always said Joe Jackson was the best hitter, the best natural pure hitter they've ever seen. In fact, Babe Ruth modeled his swing, he said, after Joe Jackson's. So then, of course, that brings us to the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And if you don't know, Joe Jackson and 7 others were the 8 men out. They were kicked out of baseball forever because they fixed the 1919 World Series. Now, a court of law at the time was put together, and they had a whole trial. But they say the trial was just as crooked as the series itself. And no one was found guilty, actually, in a court of law. However, baseball still banished him from the game. Now, Joe Jackson himself, he didn't throw the game at all. And any baseball historian or anyone who's really looked at the history and read all the stories and the facts, they'll all agree that Joe Jackson was innocent here. Maybe he was guilty of taking the money. That's still debatable. But his stats in the World Series were incredible. He had 375 for the series, 12 hits, which at the time was a record that wasn't even surpassed until the 1960s. He didn't have a single error, and he actually threw a player out at home plate. So the facts are there. Joe Jackson didn't throw the game. If anything he's guilty of is actually cheating the mobsters who were trying to fix the game. He cheated those guys, if anything. But let's get to the card. So this is an E90-1 American Caramel card. Now at the time, these were comparable to the T206 cards, which you're probably familiar with, but those were tobacco cards. And Joe Jackson is not on a tobacco issue from that time. Now the reason being is, like I was saying before, in 1909, Joe Jackson, well, I want to say he was a nobody, but he was, a young rookie. He was doing well in the minor leagues, but he hadn't proven himself as a major league player yet. So the one theory is that because the American Caramel Company was from Philadelphia and he was playing for Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics at the time, maybe they knew about him because he was a local player. And again, he didn't really become a great player until 1911. So at the time this was issued, he was relatively a nobody. Anyway, the card itself is SGC 1.5. You'll see rounded corners, as to be expected for the grade. Overall, pretty good eye appeal. You'll see a couple light creases there through the middle, especially in the bottom left there through his last name, Jackson. A pretty nice card overall for the grade. Let's see. Oh, also an interesting note there. I always noticed the red on his face, and I always wondered what that was. So that's actually just a printing error. That's supposed to be his lips, and it's pushed above by his nose or his mustache area. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit there. I'm going to flip it over here. American Caramels, 100 subjects. So at the time it was supposed to be 100 subjects. They ended up making about 120, or exactly 120 subjects going over. Baseball, Caramels. Let's see here, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania again, American Caramel Company. So at the time, caramels were basically today's chocolate. They were the confection or the sweet of choice for children and even adults back then. Caramels were super popular. They were like having a Hershey kiss today, to kind of give it a little context. So that's about the card. Also, one more thing about the back. Usually, especially on vintage cards, low grades, you're always going to see ripped paper, missing paper. And that's because a lot of people put these in albums, or they hung them up on a wall, or they pasted them, glued them to something, taped them. So this one's pretty nice because it doesn't have that. Has maybe some caramel stains you could see on the back there. So value of a card like this, about 10 to 15,000. This card, it's super rare. There's probably about, between the two grading services, probably about 100 to 130 cards actually out there. But it's one of these cards that's so in demand. Even though he's not a Hall of Famer, collectors and people, just in general, they love Joe Jackson. So he's kind of one of those guys that's not a Hall of Famer, that's insanely collectible. Even his autograph and any Joe Jackson memorabilia is extremely valuable. So if you don't know about Joe Jackson, he was illiterate, so he couldn't sign. And anything he did sign, it's argued that he signed anything other than a mortgage document or a check or some sort of legal document. And even those, they say, are debatable whether he actually signed them because he was illiterate. So his wife signed everything for him. We actually had a check, about 5 to 10 years ago, and it brought almost about $100,000. That's how rare and collectible Joe Jackson's autograph is. And his card, it follows the same thing. I mean, finding a Joe Jackson card is tough enough, and this is considered his rookie, 1909. So just to close up here, Joe Jackson, till the day he died in the early 50s, he always contended, told everybody he was innocent. He said he never took the money. He said he played his heart out, and he always cited his statistics. He put up one of the best World Series performances of any ball player ever. And that should be enough to overturn his banishment from baseball. And maybe one day, like a Veterans Committee or somebody will dig it back up. And even just to put the thought out there, maybe, even if he doesn't get elected, but just to put it out there, because he does deserve a fair shot, at least in my opinion and most baseball historians. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about Joe Jackson memorabilia, baseball cards, autographs, or anything, shoot me an email, chris@brigandycoin.com. Check us out on the web, brigandycoin.com. Thanks for watching.